Welcome back to another episode of Obsessed by Everything Bravo today on video. So if you are at all interested, and you don't have to be, at watching me, then you can go straight to YouTube, go to Obsessed by Bravo, youtube.com, youtube.com probably / Obsessed by Bravo, and you can see me. I'm here. I'm waving. So if you want to see the small corner of my bedroom that I record in, you can see that and none of the rest of it. But today, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me. If you are finding me on YouTube for the first time, hi. And if you are an avid listener who's listened to every single episode in audio, welcome back. Today, we are going to be talking about what I have said is probably one of the best seasons, not the, and I don't know if we could ever say the best, but one of the best seasons in Housewives ever created. And that is The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 2. And here's the thing. I need you to buckle up because this is dark, like extremely dark. And you might be saying to yourself, hey, well, then what makes it the best? Well, what makes it the best is how real they are. So the women are in real situations that are not produced. They are produced by the producers, but other than that, not produced. And they react how a person would normally react. And the situations are also wild. So it's interesting in that. And I feel like moving forward with Housewives, especially Beverly Hills, they're all actresses or performers or et cetera, they move into a not so much, I'm going to have to move my mic to look at the camera. They move into a not so much real area. I feel like they're always performing. It's never real. It's for the cameras. They produce storylines. And it's a little bit unwatchable now. And I hate to say that because Beverly Hills has always been one of my top favorites. It has gone downhill for probably the past 5 years, I would say. But we're not talking about now. We're talking about season 2. Again, one of the best ever, but it is dark. And we're going to open up the season with darkness. But before we do that, let's talk about the taglines, which you know are my favorite things. So before we even do that, let's actually just backtrack a little bit and talk about where we left off, because that's a good way to start this. So where we left off in Beverly Hills was, let me even go back. The relationships, okay? Kyle and Kim, they're sisters, obviously. Kyle's good friend is Lisa Vanderpump, and I'm sure everybody's heard Lisa Vanderpump. Yes, Vanderpump Rules. It's all the stuff that's going on with Secret Lives of Mormon Wives right now about Vanderpump properties. And then her sister Kim. Okay, Kim really doesn't know anybody. Across the street from Lisa Vanderpump is Adrienne. Now she's the one who owns the Palms Casino in Vegas. They own a basketball team, etc. And she is friends with Taylor Armstrong, who she had that crazy birthday party for her daughter. And then one of Kyle's husband's real estate clients is Camille Grammer's wife, now ex-wife. So Camille obviously was the villain in season 1. But then once we got to the end of the season, we realized, hey, maybe there's a reason she's acting like this, because her husband is literally moving to New York to get away from her and keep her busy with the housewives, and then he leaves her. And then, but she's having fights with Kyle all season. We have the dinner party from hell with the psychic. And then we had some frustrations with Taylor and her marriage. Lisa Vanderpump is a little bit jealous of Kyle and Taylor getting close. And then at the end of the season, Kyle and Kim get into a fight and she outs her alcoholism. And Adrienne is weirdly the everyman in that she is the character that is most normal and most like looking around and being like, who are all these people? Even though she's more than likely grew up like as a billionaire. So that's why I say it's weird, because she's the most wealthy of all of them. So that's where we are. And then we have a whole summer, and or a whole summer, but a whole in between filming. And Camille and Kelsey get divorced. Like, they're already divorced at this point. It's done because he had another woman, and I'm pretty sure got her pregnant. So I think he was trying to just get rid of Camille so he could just move on with his new woman. And then we'll just talk about the rest of the relationships from there. But Camille is definitely a different person. We'll talk about that as well. But that's just kind of how things were left. So let's talk about the taglines. So Lisa Vanderpump almost always has amazing taglines. I will say this is not so great. And only because I personally do not like the ones where it lists out like where they're from, because I don't think that's like a universal, and Kyle always has it. That is Kyle. But I like this one. It's okay because she says, life in Beverly Hills is a game and I make the rules. Now, here's Kyle's. Kyle has recently said that this is one of her favorites taglines of all time. And I saw that on TikTok the other day. But it's, I'm not the richest girl in Beverly Hills, but I am the luckiest, which I do like that, except for the fact that it contains that Beverly Hills. And then now we have Kim, and she says, people try to figure me out, but I'm one of a kind. Yeah, babe. I don't know if that's specifically a good thing to be one of a kind. Taylor said, I finally found my voice and I'm not afraid to use it. Adrienne is, having it all is easy if you're willing to work for it. And then Camille's, now this is a good one. And I feel like it really epitomizes her headspace at the time. Diamonds aren't a girl's best friend. Freedom is. Okay, cool. So now we're going to open up. Oh, and a couple of things that I want to talk about before we dive into the episode. So first of all, this episode was released September 5th, 2011. So this is where we are in our timeline. And so we were just in the summer with New Jersey. We were like in the summer, fall, and we're going back a little bit in the time. Remember, I'm not doing every episode in chronological order. I'm doing every season in chronological order. So this is September 5th. Now, something that happens, and I debated on whether to include this, truly. And what it is something happened approximately 2 weeks before the show is going to air. And so in the original airing of this episode 1 entitled Back to Beverly Hills, they had a small opening scene that they have scrubbed from Peacock and I don't know, wherever else. I'm sure if you bought the original, when it just, like, if you bought like a disc or something when it came out, it probably has it. I had to, and when I looked at it, I was like, this is not the original, because it was very clearly a very memorable scene. So I looked it up on YouTube, or I Googled it, and then I looked it up on YouTube and I found the scene. So the only way to get this scene is on YouTube at this point, unless you have gotten a hold of an original DVD or something like that. Okay, so you're probably confused. So what are you talking about? Okay, so this episode was released on September 5th, 2011. So we open up the scene and everybody is going to Adrienne's house. And it gives us a date stamp of August 29th, 2011, which is less than a week before the air date of the first episode. Okay, so we're doing, and we obviously knew what had happened because it had been in the news, right? And that was that Taylor's husband, Russell Armstrong, had committed suicide a few days prior to this. So, sorry, trigger warning, I guess. And so it was speculated on, like, why did he do this? Was this because of what was coming out on that was my original thought. I think what it really was he was getting himself into some financial trouble and he just didn't want to face the consequences of that. Um, but it didn't, I don't think I think maybe a little bit it had to do with the show, but I don't think it had to do with the show, which is what I thought of when the show was airing, because Russell doesn't, he's not presented in a good light. Let's just say that. So I originally thought that it had to do with the show. But now that I'm older and just like more aware of this stuff, he just didn't want to pull a Joe Judice and go to prison. He got enough. So they open up, everybody, Kyle's walking into Adrienne's house, and that Adrienne tells us that in the last 2 weeks, so like 2 weeks before this, after she heard of Russell's suicide, she felt she'd been on an emotional roller coaster, because obviously all these people are now in the news because people are speculating that, just like me, which is probably where I heard this, that had something to do with the show, right? She says it's been difficult and she feels for Taylor and his 3 children. So I guess he has 3 children from a previous relationship. I've never heard that before. And again, I had to search for this on YouTube, so it's not like this is, whatever. And so, because Taylor and Russell just have Kennedy together, the girl that had the birthday party that she could care less about. And it's been heartbreaking, and this is the time that all the women should get together and find a way to support each other. So everyone is there. All the husbands are there as well. The only person who's not there is Taylor, obviously, Russell, obviously. So, but all the other characters are there with Ken, Mauricio, Paul, the men too. And so they're all talking about it. And now the reason that this was removed is because it's kind of weird, right? I think at the time, probably the ladies felt like they wanted to get ahead of it, but it's like that you didn't, it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. You know what I'm saying? Sorry. If you're watching, I adjust my microphone constantly. I'm going to have to probably stop that, but I can't just sit still. I have to move around. And I'm like putting my hand in my face. Anyway, so it just seems weird. So now the scene is basically them getting together and talking about it. And so Kim is like, well, I never saw any signs of, I guess, depression. She just says of it. And Adrienne's like, well, I don't think any of us saw signs, which is like kind of a weird thing to say. You guys didn't even know that? And she says that's why it's so shocking when you think you know somebody and then something like this happens. Mauricio says that he's gone through a lot of emotions, from feeling sad watching Taylor and her daughter, go through something so sad and struggle, to feeling angry because it's kind of a selfish act. And I do think that is the gamut of emotions that people do feel when someone commits suicide, because you're sad that they're dead, but then you're also angry because, if somebody died in an accident or is murdered, you'd be angry too. But at this time, when it's suicide, you're angry at that person that's passed. So it is strange to feel all those emotions. And then Kyle says, well, we don't know what state of mind someone is in to get to that point. And he's like, for sure. There was obviously some Great Depression of my computer. My computer capitalized the Great Depression as if it was like the time period. Okay, that's funny. And then Kyle says that the town they live in, your financial status is super important. So there is a need to keep up the front of what you have. LVP says that she believes that Taylor isn't even aware of the financial mess that they were in. Now, what I will say is all of that sounds cryptic, but we will find out about a lot of this stuff in season 3. So just TBD on that. Let's see. And Kyle says all he ever wanted to be was a successful venture capitalist. And it was important to him, I think the successful part. And when it all went down the tubes, it was too much pressure. LVP says that she felt an emotional disconnection with this man, but it was also because of the impression that Taylor had given him and she had too much info to want to connect with him. So that's strange. And that's also a little bit of putting the blame on Taylor, when I don't think that it was Taylor that wasn't allowing you to have an emotional connection with him. I think it was Russell, first of all, because I feel like that is the vibe we got in season 1. And all the stuff that Taylor talks about, we're going to talk about this. So just TBD on that. Put a pin in it like we always put a pin in. Adrienne says the things that she had told us about their marriage was heartbreaking. Pin. Camille, we were told the same thing and reacting from what we've been told, and we were trying to protect our friend. Pin. LVP. Maybe with hindsight, I don't know what I could have done differently. Cam says, I heard you say so many times that you were worried for Taylor that she was going to have a breakdown, but we never really saw Russell. Kyle tells us that she thinks a lot of them have guilt for not seeing this coming. And LVP says she feels bad for Taylor and she needs their support more than ever. Kyle is crying and she says there are plenty of men that just leave their wives and they don't kill themselves. And, Taylor can't feel responsible for that. Nobody can. It was his choice. She tells us that it's hard to move forward because it's so tragic and so many people have been left hurt by it. But as difficult as it is, life goes on. It has to. Okay. So all the pins that we're putting in, this is essentially what the season is going to be about. And this is why I think the women, why they have a scene, because there's a lot of discussion about Russell and the things that he's doing in their marriage that are not necessarily going to put him in a good light. And that is essentially what this season is about. And I hinted and alluded to this last season. So, don't be surprised when you start hearing bad shit about Russell. And you know what? If you're new and you're coming to this from YouTube, go check out the audio version. I have over 100 episodes. Almost every single Housewife episodes up until now in the chronological time period has its own episode. Go and check those out. I have a full season of Beverly Hills season 1 if you want to know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start out with what's on Peacock. So we had to adjust things a little bit, I'm guessing. So we open up with Lisa walking Jiggy down the street, and she's going to the beauty salon. Well, I guess they are going because Jiggy, Jesus. Jiggy's with them, and Pandora is meeting her. And Lisa says that Pandy is the love of her life. Strong, stubborn, and infuriating. And I can't talk. And she wouldn't change things for the world. Then we see a scene of Jason going over to their house. And he asks Rosia, the maid that I guess she lives there. He just walks in, which is, hello, ring the doorbell, babe. And he's like, where's Ken? And she's like, Mr. Ken's not here. You didn't think to call first, babe? Anyway. So we have we're going to go back and forth. Lisa tells us that Jason is Pandy's ideal partner. I love that she calls Pandora Pandy. Also, why would you name your daughter Pandora's Box? After Pandora's Box. I've always wondered that because I don't know. Anyway, she calls her Pandy, which I do like. And that then we go over to him and he's just sitting around waiting. Then Ken comes in with all the dogs and he's kind of why are you here? And then Ken tells us that he loves Jason. He's been like a son to him. And then obviously he's there to ask permission to marry Pandy. And Ken says, well, that's really old fashioned, but I like it because Ken is an old fashioned old fart. And then Ken is like, look, we should probably let Pandora tell her mom and, so we'll just keep it I won't say anything and you don't say anything to her. We'll keep it a secret after you pop the question. We're like, okay. Now, Taylor is meeting a man named Dr. Sophie. They're going out for a walk in the canyon. One thing I did notice is that Taylor, who's already a very thin woman, looks much thinner, shockingly thin. This is her psychiatrist, and she says that she likes him because he is straight to the point, getting through stuff, no bullshit, I guess. She says she feels like she's thinking straighter, and instead of reacting to conflict with a stress response, which would be like a fight or flight type of or freeze, they've added that now, she's able to think and respond. But I'm thinking back to season one. Now, we're not going to talk about her marriage because I think this is what she's talking about. But I really feel like in a lot of the cases that there was conflict with the women, she was not like doing like a fight or flight. She was very much able to stick up for herself. She said she was going to pull some Oklahoma on Kim. She, at the dinner party from hell, she's the one that was like, enough, enough. She's the one who stopped it. And like, even so far as to say, she had called Adrienne. She thought Adrienne was going to be the one to stop all the fighting. And Adrienne never was, because she was like, I'm out of this. I'm not dealing with this. Taylor was the one who was always stopping the fighting. Now, Taylor was maybe the one who might have been causing the fighting. There's an argument for that. But Taylor was the one who was stopping the fighting. So I don't know what she thinks this happened. I mean, obviously, this is something to do with her marriage. But it's like, if you wanted to see a fight or flight response, that would be Kim. That would be what Kim does, because Kim shuts down in any kind of conflict. She's not able to handle that. That's probably related to her alcoholism, right? So I don't know. This whole thing was weird to me because I never thought of Taylor as somebody who couldn't stand up for herself. Of course, again, we're talking about her marriage, right? And he basically says, if you go through life thinking there's going to be a winner and a loser, it's going to be hard, because conflict isn't about winning and losing. It's about resolution so everybody can move on. And she tells us that her and Russell have a difficult marriage, and that therapy is an incredible amount of work, but she's been fighting for her marriage and for her children. She says therapy is helping her find her voice, which is also her tagline. And again, I don't get it, because I have never known her not to just say what she's feeling. Again, on the show, maybe not so much in her marriage, but she's had a tough time speaking up for herself, and therapy is allowing her to find the strength to speak up. Okay. So Kyle is now moving. So the house that they were living in, they just lived in season one, and then they moved to a new house, which is personally my favorite house of Kyle's. Now they live in this huge mansion that I hate. I hate the house she lives in now. This is my favorite house. I'm just not going to accept any other house that she ever lives in. And I don't know why I felt emotionally attached to Kyle's homes, but I do, so. But they sold the first home and they're moving into the new home, and they love that house, but they outgrew it and they need more space. Why? Farrah's an adult. You need less space. Kyle tells us that when her and Kim have a fight about something, she turned into Kim's mom, but Kyle isn't her mom, and she doesn't have the patience that her mom had with Kim. So this is kind of reminding us that the last season ended with a huge fight between Kyle and Kim, and almost like a relationship ending fight. And they didn't speak for a long time. They spoke at the reunion, but it was kind of weird and tense. And their relationship has been bad since this happened. And we go to Kim, and she says that Kyle has been calling her, but she's choosing not to talk to Kyle. And she's taking some time, and then she's really sad. This is actually really sad. She says maybe one day they will go back to being amazing sisters, because they are amazing sisters. And this makes me sad, because I don't think their relationship ever goes back to the way that it was before the season finale of season one. Like, not ever, not now, not 15 years later. Their relationship is permanently altered by what happened. And these are the kind of things about reality TV that make me sad and make me feel icky about watching, because it's like, I feel like, of course it's interesting, right? And it makes for dramatic television, but then it's also like, what are the consequences? And then what part do I have to play that I'm enjoying this content? I mean, this is part of the lexicon and the fabric of what that scene and that limo helped to shape the rest of Housewives. It was so dynamic. It was so explosive. But this is real life. I mean, this really, really affected Kim and Kyle's relationship, and still to this day is affecting them. So it does make me feel a little guilty. Am I going to stop? No. And, I just have to keep reminding myself that it was their choice to film, knowing what they know, that they were going to try to hide this from the cameras. And then it got to a boiling point and Kyle just exploded. That was their choice. They made the decision to do this. And while I love Kim, I know, like, when I was at BravoCon, I was having a conversation and somebody was like, oh, I wish Kim would come back on. I said, I don't want her back on television. I think she needs to work on herself and we don't need to be a part of that. Like, personally, I just feel like there becomes a line where it just becomes unhealthy, and we've crossed that with Kim. We haven't got there yet. We will get there this season. That is part of what this season is about as well. So Kim's telling us that she just isn't ready to be there with Kyle, which is unfortunate because they're going to have to be filming. And then Kim says, it's confusing to explain her family to people that, because she hasn't had much of a relationship with Kyle since the fight in the limo last year. And she tells us that, she's talking to her daughter, Kimberly, and she's just kind of reminiscing about her mom. Of course, all of them are upset about their mom. I mean, their mom was like this huge presence. Big Kathy was this huge presence in their life. And she says, when she was upset, her mom used to read her scripts, which is like, okay, not, Little House on the Prairie, or even, I'm not, that's not a book. You know what? We just watched Netflix, like not Wrinkle in Time. Your mom didn't read you that, or like Lord of the Rings. Nope, scripts for Disney television shows, I'm sure. And Kimberly, her daughter, says that she wishes she could have known her more. And Kyle tells us that she knows her mom would be really sad about what's going on with her and Kim. And she's crying saying this. And then we go back to Kim, and Kim says that she's finding it harder and harder to just let this go. This being the thing with Kyle. So not good. So now we go over to Camille, and she's at her home, the one that we saw, and she's with Dee Dee. Remember Dee Dee? And she says she got a new delivery from the house, and they are selling the house in the Hamptons. And she tells us that their divorce is final. She's still living in the Malibu home, and she plans on staying there. But she's starting to think that maybe she just needs to simplify her life since it's just her and the kids. She says that the last 2 months she's been healing and working on herself, and it's been an interesting experience finding herself. Now, this is very interesting about Camille, because Camille last year was very much the wife of a celebrity, and that was like her whole thing. And even so much as to say, I'm doing this so I can be myself, that I haven't been able to be for years because I've just been, Kelsey's wife and mother to my kids and XYZ. And it's so interesting because so much of her identity was tied to Kelsey. Even though she was trying to say, I'm my own person, it was like, well, my business and what my career is tied to Kelsey. All the things that I have are tied to Kelsey. My whole personality is tied to Kelsey. You somehow say that I'm insecure, I'm going to go nuts on you for that because I'm actually really tied to Kelsey, but I'm pretending that I'm not too. So it's been very interesting to see now that she actually isn't tied to Kelsey, who is Camille? So that's kind of what we're going to be going through this year and, or this season, I guess. So she's basically, they're selling the house in the Hamptons, and they're going to have to start selling all their properties that they own and dividing assets. And again, I guarantee you that Camille got really, really, really good divorce settlement because I think he was just trying to move quick to get his new lady, married or whatever. And so Apparently they got a bunch of stuff from the Hamptons home, and so they're going through it, and it's like beautiful furniture. And then this box of shoes, and she's like, yeah, these are all my summer shoes. And so then my mind, of course, went crazy because I'm like, okay, they have a house in the Hamptons, so she has a whole summer wardrobe just for the Hamptons. They have that New York City apartment, so she has her New York wardrobe with her New York shoes. They have that home in Hawaii that we've, so she has her Hawaii home. I don't know why that's different from the Hamptons wardrobe, but obviously a Hawaii wardrobe is going to be way different than a Hamptons wardrobe, right? Then they have a home in Colorado. We're going to see that in a couple episodes. I'm just thinking that's, well, I know that she said she had 7 properties. So that's LA, Hawaii, Colorado, New York City, Hamptons. I don't know what else they could have that would make it 7. Maybe, I think they have two LA homes, but so she's got 5 different wardrobes, 5 different shoes, 5 different set of furniture, 5 different set of appliances, 5 different vehicles because they're flying to all these places. They're not driving, right? Someone to maintain these properties the majority of time that they're not there. So a house manager, or just like a company that goes probably once a week to make sure the pipes aren't frozen in Colorado, turn the car on, mow the grass. The the immense amount of wealth. I mean, Frasier was like, how much money did this man make on Frasier? Crazy. Like, anyway, so they're selling all this stuff. And so she's going through this box and it's like her summer Hampton shoes. And then she tells us that her and Kelsey do not communicate at all. And when they do, it's through a mediator just for the kids, which is, that's crazy. I can't imagine not speaking to the father of my kids. And she tells us in a confessional that one of her friends told her to expect the worst and she won't be disappointed. And she's like, yeah, I haven't been disappointed. But now she feels so much stronger than she ever did years ago. Okay, Adrienne and Paul. And here's what I'm going to tell you about Adrienne and Paul. I don't pay attention to their scenes. I pull my phone out and I either scroll on TikTok, and I'm not even kidding, or I play this little game that I like to play on my phone. I can't watch Adrienne and Paul scenes. It's infuriating. All right, so we go over to Adrienne's thing. She says her and Paul are like 2 ships passing in the night, and they like each other in small doses. Why are you married? So Adrienne is planning a big dinner party to bring all the ladies together. And we meet Bernie, which we met him last year, but Bernie becomes an actual character this year. He is her private chef, and he does not like Lisa Vanderpump. So that's basically his personality, is he doesn't like Lisa because she said something last year, like not while filming, I don't think, that he thought was offensive about his food. I don't know. Paul and Adrienne are still bickering. That's the extent of their relationship, is that they're wealthy and they bicker about everything. Just here's what your I know you're saying for your children. Your children growing up in a home where the parents are constantly bickering is not healthy for them. Okay. So maybe rethink that. Okay, so Kyle is going shopping, and she tells us that it's hard going over to Adrienne's because she's so fancy and she doesn't know if she's going to come down the staircase in a ball gown or not. So she's shopping for something to wear. Like, you don't have a million things in your closet that would be appropriate. Then Taylor runs in and she's like out of breath and freaking out. And she's like, you're never going to guess who I ran into. And Kyle's like, ew. And she's like, Cedric, he just like walked up to me. And then I felt like I was going to get in trouble just for being next to him and talking to him. Taylor says that she feels like this is going to cause an issue with Lisa Vanderpump because she knows that Lisa doesn't like her. And then Lisa pops in a confessional and to say that she has reservations about Taylor because if she's going to invest in a friend, she wants to know that she is getting the truth. And she doesn't feel like she gets that all the time. Ugh. So Lisa's basically calling Taylor a liar. Is that's what I'm getting from this. And then, so here's what I will say is Taylor feels like Lisa doesn't like her, and Taylor is correct. Lisa doesn't like you, babe. Taylor says LVP makes her feel like she isn't as good as she is. And she's like, maybe it's a wealth thing. Uh, the wealth inequality here. And when I say wealth inequality, these people are all rich. These people all own like Kelly bags, Hermes handbags. They all drive fancy cars. What does it matter at that point? Like and it just goes to show you is like, you're never going to stop comparing yourself to others, no matter how much that you have. Like, just think about Elon Musk and how much of like a loser that guy actually is, because he's constantly striving to be this other thing. Or Mark Zuckerberg, same way. He's constantly striving to like be this other thing instead of just being who he is. And these people have all the money in the world, literally could solve with their own pocketbooks, could solve most of the world's issues, and choose not to. Instead, they're buying islands, they're buying elections, they're buying information about us so they can sell us more stuff. And it's like, you could do so much good in the world and people would actually like you at that point, but you can't do it because of your own insecurity. And this is the perfect example of this, is that people, no matter your income level, you're insecure about your comparing yourself based on income. So you might as well just be poor and happy, like, because if you're rich, you're still not going to be happy. You're still going to be comparing yourself to other people. And this just goes to show us that. So she says she never feels like she's as good as Lisa, or Lisa doesn't make her feel like she's as good as her. And maybe it's her wealth, or maybe it's just because she's British and she doesn't understand how to take her. And she says she doesn't mind if she doesn't like her, but she maybe wants to clear the air with Lisa. It actually sounds like you mind a lot that Lisa doesn't like you. In fact, you're running in here freaking out about just happenstance running into Cedric, thinking you're going to get in trouble. It actually sounds like you care a lot. That's so weird. Okay, so now we go back to Adrienne's, and she is planning the menu and kind of planning the party with Bernie. This is why we're talking about Bernie. Paul's there, and of course he comes in, they've already got everything planned, and he's just like, okay, asking questions, and he's like, why don't you do this? Well, why don't you do this? And now he's like bothering her with all kinds of questions about the day, and she's like, you weren't here for any of the prep or any of the planning. Why are you bothering me? So now it's the day of the dinner party. Same thing. She's trying to get ready. And she's like, he was gone the entire day playing golf. He didn't stay to help me at all. And now he's just bothering me with all kinds of questions. Why are you with the man that you don't like? I don't understand it. Just be by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't get it. Whatever. They've got a bunch of servers and staff there, and they're using like the real silverware. This is like a fancy dinner party. And then they tell us that they've got a new puppy, Jackpot. And then Adrienne goes, Jiggy, it's game on. So what this tells me is, it also with what Bernie says, is over the course of the filming and airing of the last season, Adrienne is extremely jealous of Lisa Vanderpump. Taylor is extremely insecure around Lisa Vanderpump. What was happening with Lisa Vanderpump? Lisa Vanderpump was a fan favorite is probably the issue. I mean, we're going back to Jill versus Bethany here, because Lisa Vanderpump was a fan favorite, still is. She has fierce supporters. Now, I have always loved Lisa Vanderpump. I will say that I've cooled on her just based on some of the things that happen on Vanderpump Rules. I feel like Lisa Vanderpump is very like male centered. I feel like she forgives guys for all kinds of bad behavior that she would never forgive one of her female employees. I don't like that at all, but she's still a favorite character. She's funny. She's cheeky. She's beautiful. She's rich. She's delusional. She's a businesswoman. She's a mother. She like can buy anything that she wants to. She's got a wonderful sense of style, and she's still showing. She was at BravoCon. I mean, she produced her own television show. She's just got a lot going for her. That here's the thing, Adrienne and Taylor just don't have. So if you're feeling jealousy, you're feeling insecure. Well, yeah, I mean, I understand that. But what this is just telling me is that Adrienne's got beef, and we're going to be hearing about this a lot. So Adrienne tells us that she has some reservations about bringing all the girls together in her home, because if history repeats itself, then it's not going to be good. She's thinking about all the trips. She's thinking about the dinner for Party from Hell. And remember, the scene that we saw, or I saw, and I explained, at the very beginning of the episode was filmed months and months after this was filmed. This was filmed right before the season aired. So that was a long time, like a long time after this. Okay. So I know it's kind of confusing. But we like jumped forward in time and then jumped back in time. So she expects everyone to be on their best behavior at her house. The ladies start arriving. Kyle arrives, and then Camille. And so the whole point of this dinner is Camille was actually on an episode of a television show that I did not remember existed, and it was called Shit My Dad Says. Couldn't tell you anything about it. I'd never watched this. This is not hot in Cleveland, I'll tell you that. And so she was a guest actress on this. So they're planning on everybody getting together, and they're going to screen the episode and then have dinner. So Kyle and Camille greet each other. They hug, and Kyle tells us she feels like Camille went through a lot with the divorce, especially after that many years of marriage. And then being the mother to his children, she deserved a lot more respect than what she got. And so then Kyle was like, well, how are things going? And Camille tells us, that on the day that her divorce was finalized, Kyle was one of the people that reached out to her, and she really touched her, and it started their friendship back. And here's the thing about Kyle. And okay, look, I'm a Kyle stan. I can't help it. I like her. What are you going to do? I feel like I have other favorites that if you tell people that Dorinda's your favorite, they're like, oh yeah, of course. I feel like when you say Kyle is your favorite, you have to be like, well, I really, you have to explain yourself. I don't want to explain myself. Okay. I like Kyle. I feel like she is, of all of the women, and it's probably because she's got sisters, right? Of all the women that we talk about, I feel like Kyle is somebody who would be a real friend. And maybe not so much so like on the show, but if we're talking about off show, I feel like she would be someone who would show up for you, make you a lasagna if you were sick, make you a casserole if you were sick. I mean, she would be the one that would be there for you. She would be the one that you could call, and she would show up. And maybe not in the show relationships. And I need to be very specific, but in real life, that is who she is. And I don't feel like a lot of the other women would be like that. I don't feel like Bethany would be like that. I don't feel like, Luann would be like that. I don't feel like there's a lot of them that I don't feel like would be like a real true friend the way that Kyle would, right? Okay. So Taylor arrives, and they're all wearing the same color, blue, and they're all dressed really fancy. And now Kim comes, and she refuses her champagne. Okay, so that's good. She tells us that she doesn't really want to see Kyle, but she has to bite the bullet and be civil. Like, yeah, babe, when you signed your contract to be on the show, you guys were going to have to be together. And if you can't handle that, then maybe you shouldn't be on the show together. Maybe you guys should have done the show at all. Okay. Kyle tells us that since they had the blowout, they are still on shaky ground. Okay. Then Lisa and Ken walk over. And when they arrive, Bernie has the staff shut the doors to the kitchen so he doesn't have to hear her. Like, oh my God. Then they brought Jiggy. And so now Jiggy and what was the dog? Jackpot. They're having a standoff. They don't like each other. And Kim says, a lot of dogs are jealous of Jiggy because he has these beautiful clothes and his beautiful face. I love how much they love this fucking dog because I love my dog. My dog is super cute. Maybe I'll bring him in one day. And he is super cute. He's just a little Yorkie. He's no Jiggy though. And I don't take him places and I don't have outfits for him or any of this stuff. So they go to theater and they watch, which of course Adrienne has a theater room, right? And they watch this, probably hasn't even been released to the public yet, video of this TV show. And the ladies are literally cracking up. Of course, Camille is playing like a caricature of herself from the first season of the show. So it's like very meta, you know? And but the ladies are all cracking up and they look like they had a really good time. Maybe I'll add that to my list of like things to do, like a deep dive on. Shit my dad says, okay. We'll put that right here and I'll forget in 30 seconds. So we go to commercial break and now we are going to sit down and eat dinner. So everybody goes to the dining room and then Adrienne and Paul get into like this bickering fight about just random shit at the dinner table. And then like everybody is giving each other looks. So like, you know, that's like, it's so embarrassing. And then the bickering gets more serious and more serious. And she gets really mad at him at the table. Enough so that LVP is like, stop. You guys need to stop right now. Like, stop doing this. So Adrienne stands up. The whole thing that they're fighting over is like she wanted to make a toast. And then he's like, well, I want to do it too. And she's like, no. So Adrienne makes a toast and she says that they had a storm recently and their olive tree that they had in the front yard fell down. And it was like one of her favorite things about the whole house, which is a tree outside is one of your favorite things about your house. It's so weird. And so she basically gave everyone an olive branch. And she's like, this is us extending olive branches to everyone so that we can all get along tonight. And then like, I'm guessing like through the season. And Lisa Vanderpump is like, including you two? So Paul then asks Lisa if her and Ken bicker. And she's like, no, because Ken always gives in. And then Kyle says, well, that's how her and Mauricio are too. Now, Mauricio is not there. Ken is the only man who came to this. And then Lisa's like, well, you know, what's really worth fighting over? Like, life's too short. Where are we fighting over stuff? So then Paul turns to Taylor and asks how things are with her and Russell. Now, Russell isn't here either, okay? And she's like, well, you know, we're working on things and we're so deep into psychotherapy that she's sick of herself. Okay. So here's where I want to pause just before we even move on to the next. Why are they in psychotherapy? So I don't know if she just used the wrong word, but I don't feel like she is. So for those of you who are not aware, psychotherapy is like what Freud does, where it's like lay it back on the couch and tell me about your mom. Whereas the majority of people now who go to therapy, it's like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically like if you change your thoughts, that will change your behavior. So basically, it's like you have this repeating behavior, you need to change your thoughts around it. Psychotherapy or psychoanalysis is like very old school. It's like 1960s, you know, talking about your mom, talking about, you know, all this stuff. I personally feel like psychotherapy can implant a lot of ideas that aren't necessarily accurate because our memories are flawed. And psychotherapy is for people that have really like deep rooted trauma. So PTSD. And maybe that would work for Taylor because I do know that she had kind of an abusive childhood. That's why working with abused women and children is her thing. But I don't know. I just feel like to work on your marriage, you really just need to work on your communication because that's really the problem in marriage. A lot of times is there's a communication breakdown. And so person A is not getting their needs met because they can't communicate those needs to person B, and then they start to build resentment. And then, person B is not communicating their thoughts. There's like a lack of communication. There's like a breakdown of it. And that's typically what's wrong with um, marriages. And then, or it's like person A is doing a behavior that person B really hates, but they can't say. Or a lot of times what really happens with men is that they're doing something that a woman doesn't like. She's told him and told him and told him and told him, and he still does it. But that psychotherapy is not good for any of those scenarios. So, and that's just like me thinking, because I'm like, why is she going to psychotherapy? Yeah, you're going to be sick of yourself at like psychotherapy. The other thing, and this is what's significant about this year, is that psychotherapy is like the type of therapy where you have to break down a lot of your defenses. And it's sort of like what they do in the military where they break you down and then they build you back up. Why on the fucking earth would this therapist let her film a reality TV show if he's trying to break her down to build her back up? Because what's going to happen is this woman is so vulnerable and so, I don't even know, so like victimized by her own brain. It's going to lead to crises, which is exactly what happens, right? And so either you say, I don't think it's a good idea for us to be going this deep because you're filming a reality TV show and the producers are not going to like have boundaries on this because that's not what you signed up for, or you need to not do the show. Like there really isn't. So again, when I talk about how I think it's unethical for them to do therapy on television, this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. We've already met the therapist, right? And I'm not saying that he's like a bad person or whatever, but what I'm saying is it's definitely unethical to be for her to be going through deep, intense psychoanalysis while also filming a reality TV show. We're not talking about an educational video for therapists. We're talking about this is fodder for the general public to go after her, right? And so when you think back to the lady yelling at the cat meme, which is international meme that everybody can recognize, it's because of this. It's because Taylor is literally having a mental health crisis this entire season and beyond. We know already now that her husband killed himself, okay? So it's crossing a boundary almost, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know who's responsible for it. In the end, it's us because we're watching it, right? Which is where this is why I say sometimes I have a hard time with this because if I wasn't giving this show an audience, would all of this have happened? What I will say is that we see Taylor on the other side of this. In fact, at one point, she moves over to the Real Housewives of Orange County. I know, it's weird. She's okay. And what's good about these reflections is like, I know she's okay. And, even though I'm deep diving and now I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is unethical and almost immoral, I still know she's okay. And everything is okay. And they went through a rough time. And you know what? How do you become a better person, a higher person? You have to go through rough times, right? Okay. But that's not what this episode is. She says, she's sick of herself because she's going through psychotherapy. She says it's been helpful for each of them to take a look at their lives and what they brought into the relationship and how it's affecting them together. It's been good for her. She's finding her voice. Camille tells us that she thinks it's admirable that they're working on their marriage through therapy because her ex never gave her that opportunity. So then Kyle asks, well, whose idea was it? And Taylor says hers. And Kyle says, well, was he open to it? Because, I've had a lot of friends who can't get their husband to go to therapy. And Lisa pecks in and she's like, yeah, Ken would never go. And he says, yeah, no, I will never go. And then Kyle's like, well, when you have children, you need to give it your best shot to make the relationship work because you can't just like do what Kelsey did and just pick up and leave your wife. And so Ken says, maybe Americans are different, but he wouldn't want his wife going to a therapist. He says it's up to the man. If your woman is not happy, you have to make her happy. You have to sort it out yourself. And Kyle says, well, anybody who's going to therapy has already tried that and it didn't work. And Ken's like, I don't think so. And he tells us, why do you have to pay a third person to just like listen to you? Again, it's because there's a breakdown in communication, babe. That's why. If they could talk to each other, then they wouldn't be doing this, right? So Adrienne says, well, in the Catholic religion, we had to see a therapist before you get married. And Ken says that if he had to go to a therapist to make his marriage feel better, he would feel weak. And then, and so then we have like reaction shots from all the ladies, and they're all like, oh, and so none of them like this. So Taylor's like, did he just call me weak for trying to work on my marriage and my mental health? That's just rude. And LVP says, if we need therapy, it would be done by myself. LVP is like, she's realizing that everybody did not like what he just said. So she's trying to like maybe like put a little Band-Aid on it. And Taylor goes, well, after 29 years, you guys are probably fine. So Adrienne tells us that Ken's approach is that's not what him and Lisa would do. And that's okay because that's his opinion, which is exactly right. Like, this is just his opinion. And he's saying that for him, he wouldn't want to go to therapy, and that's okay. And yeah, it is okay. He doesn't have to go to therapy if he doesn't want to, So here comes Bernie serving. We've only had the salad, but here comes Bernie serving the main dish, and Taylor gets up and goes to the bathroom. So at some point, Kyle gets up to try to go find her because I know she's been gone. First of all, their bathroom, this is just their guest bathroom down by their dining room, has 2 rooms. It's like your primary bathroom where it has like the toilet separate, and then a little like lounge area that's got a double sink with mirrors. This is their guest bathroom, people. This is how rich these people are. Anyway, so Taylor's in there and she's on the verge of tears. And she says that when Ken says it's a weakness to work on yourself in therapy, it hurt her feelings. And she's like, you're carrying a dog who's dressed up in clothes. That wasn't nice. And I don't care what they do in England because I'm trying to keep my family together. And it's like, babe, first of all, if you're working on your voice, why didn't you say something? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just trash talking people in the bathroom. And so Kyle's trying to make her feel better. And she's like, it takes a lot of courage and strength to like go and admit that you're doing it at the table, like to everybody. Taylor tells us that Kyle has a way to calm her down, but she's upset with herself for not saying anything in the moment. So then Lisa comes in and she's like, I guess trying to go to the bathroom, and she's just like seeing them just like to each other. And she tells us that Taylor is very manipulative, and now she's trying to drag Kyle into her problems with her. So I don't know. This dynamic between Taylor and Lisa is strange. Like, it's very obvious that Lisa's jealous of Taylor and Kyle's friendship. But I feel like the jealousy is more of a worry on Lisa's part about Taylor's motives. I feel like she's worried for Kyle. So Lisa goes back to the table, and then Ken is just like, well, what happened to Taylor? And LVP's like, they're in the bathroom together. So then Kyle comes back, and Ken is like, you can tell Ken is like, knows he did something wrong, and he's now trying to figure out what to do about it. So he asked, Kyle, and he's like, well, did I do wrong by talking about therapy? And she's like, well, I think that you offended her a little bit. And he's like, offended? That's a big word. That's a big word. You shouldn't say that. Offended? It's like, okay. Then she's like, you upset her then. Relax. Like, Jesus. And Lisa then tells us that she's not happy about Kyle's reaction to Ken because it's his opinion and he's entitled to it. And she's like, he's going to stiff up her lip, Kyle tells us that he was so upset that she used the word offended, but he wasn't upset about how Taylor felt. And she's like, there's so many words that I can't use in this group. Offended, insecure, insignificant. She's like, I'm just going to have to need a dictionary to come up with the words that I can't use. So then they go to commercial, and then they have one of those little interstitials that show Ken serving Jiggy out of his fancy wine cup. Water. Jiggy's drinking out of the cup, and then he's like this. drinking it right after him. And this, I love it. I love it. I can't help it. So Ken tells us that the way Kyle reacted surprised him. And so Adrienne asked the table, like, what's wrong? And Kyle says, look, it was the way that Ken said that going to therapy is a sign of weakness to get help. And so, okay. So Taylor comes back and then Ken asks her if he upset her by what he said. And she's like, it did. And Lisa Vanderpump said, it's just his opinion. That's just how he perceives it. And then Taylor goes, he perceives that going to therapy is a sign of weakness. And Ken just pops into a confessional and he says, like, I'm an old Englishman. And, this is just my opinion that I probably just shouldn't have said anything. And he tells her that, like he's not trying to attack her. And Taylor's breaking down and she's like, I'm fragile. I'm going through a lot. And Adrienne says, you can't go through 20 years of marriage and not have your issues. Everyone has issues. And then LVP, first of all, Taylor missed the entire meal. Okay. The plates are cleared when she comes back to the table. So she missed the entire main portion of dinner. This is how long she was gone. And LVP looks at her watch and she's like, well, we have to go because we have to pick somebody up from the airport. And she's just kind of looking at Kyle and how close Kyle and Taylor have become. And she feels left out of that scenario. So she leaves and everybody else is back at the dinner party. So interesting group dynamics that we've acquired. I don't know. We're going to explore those in the next episode. So because I'm including video in this component, it's probably going to take me maybe a little bit longer to get some episodes out. I'm hoping to do 4 this week, but I cannot make a promise. But I typically, if you're new to this, I cover 4 episodes a week typically of Housewives. I'm going in chronological order. And that's basically my thing. If you will give me a rating review, I would really like it. If you subscribe to my podcast, the YouTube, my social media, I would love it. If not, cool too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.